Hi everyone, thanks for taking the time to watch this what I hope will be a short video. I know you all get bombarded with emails all the time from us and lots of other people, so I thought putting this short video together might be an easier way to get you up to speed with the new Residential Tenancies Act. I'm sure you've all heard about it by now. It's coming into play on the 29th of March later this month, and I thought we'd run through some of the changes that are taking place, that are the key changes to you. First of all, we'll start with the simple ones, and that is the terminology change. So tenants will now be referred to as renters. You, the landlords, will now be referred to as residential rental providers or just rental provider, and a lease or a tenancy agreement will now be referred to as a rental agreement. Some of the condition reports will all need to be changed, adding in more spots for ongoing maintenance and dates for when the last compliance checks were carried out. We're going to go into that in a little bit more detail shortly. Things like smoke alarms, pool and electrical safety. There will all be spots for the condition reports. Anything that the tenant marks on the condition report will now be added as a maintenance job, and we'll go through that together with you, the landlord, once the tenant returns the condition report after the 3 days. There are some new disclosure statements that are in place, and that will mean that we need to disclose anything like if the home has ever had black mold or damp issues and had repairs to that, we need to disclose that to the tenant. Of course, if there were ever any homicide at the property, I don't think we have that problem with any of our rental properties, but if there were a homicide or death of not a natural cause, we would need to disclose that to the prospective tenant at the time of going through the property as well. And the other thing that we need to disclose, if you, the owner, has intention of selling the property during the initial rental period, we need to disclose that to the tenant as well. There are things in place that require us to compensate tenants for us going to the property. So if we do have the property for sale, we need to compensate the tenant. I think at the minute it will be half a day's rent for every inspection that's carried out. We're also now restricted on a lot of the questions that we are allowed to ask prospective renters as they come through your home. There's a lot about their previous rental history that we can no longer ask them, and obviously anything to do with discrimination and things like that. So it's more important than ever that we get our experienced team at the property to meet the prospective renters and get a good feel as to who's going to be the best fit for your property going forward. One of the most talked about on the media and in the industry itself, changes to the legislation, is the safety compliance checks coming into place. You've all had smoke alarms checked for a number of years now. Those of you that have spas and swimming pools are used to having to make sure that that's compliant, and most of you thankfully have had the gas compliance up to date regularly. The new part that's coming in primarily is the new legislation under the gas safety and the new electricity safety compliance that need to be brought into play. I'm going to introduce you to Jimmy shortly, who will explain some of this in detail, but primarily what you're looking for is to make sure under the new legislation there's new compliance certificate that need to be filled out according to the current standards and the current regulations in play. We've got great relationships with our electricians and our plumbers and then we'll continue to still use those, but not all of them are going to be over the new standard of compliance that need to make you safe should something happen to your property down the track. So I'd now like to introduce you to Jimmy Sanderson. Jimmy owns the Pro Total Group, based here on the Mornington Peninsula, and Jimmy is one of the rare breeds that has both electrical qualification and gas compliance qualification, gas fitting qualification.
Yeah, plumber gas fitter
qualification. And Jimmy and the Pro Total Group are absolutely best placed to take care of all our compliance needs going forward. We're delighted to have you on board, Jimmy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to let Jimmy just take you through some of what they do in doing their compliance checks moving forward.
Thanks for the introduction, Michael. My name is Jimmy Sanderson, Director of the Pro Total Group, a home safety and compliance service company that specifically caters for gas, electrical and smoke alarm compliance inspections here on the Mornington Peninsula. Our first service is the electrical safety compliance inspections, which runs through a number of steps to make sure that your property is safe and compliant according to the new regulations. The first test we conduct when on site is a visual inspection, maintaining the integrity of your switchboard, your wiring, and all electrical fixed plant and equipment. The second test we go through is earthing. the most important component of electrical installation. So in the event of a fault, your earthing system is the place that carries that unwanted energy away safely. We run through a number of steps: protective devices, your safety switches, circuit breakers, the integrity of those, and the related tests in relation to those. We also do insulation resistance testing to test the integrity of your existing cabling, making sure that there are no weak points that will obviously cause an electrical hazard. Our testing equipment will pick that up. We check for polarity correct wiring on a lot of the circuitry, on all of the circuitry. And we do a number of testing for fault loop impedance and RCBO trip testing. Now, all these technical terms that I've said now, they're all in relation to the Australian standards that we need to provide in relation to electrical testing. And our product's been designed to combine these mandatory requirements in the new RTR Act in with what we need to inspect as a tradesman according to our standards. So it's a standard on top of a standard. And yeah, so that's our electrical inspection. Our gas safety compliance inspection caters for all testing in accordance to AS 5601 and includes pressure testing the main line, so testing your whole insulation of pipework for leaks. There's a number of tests we need to do, checking electrical isolation points. Ventilation is a really important one within heating. We check the integrity of flue cowls. We also conduct negative pressure tests if required. Obviously check connections of appliances for leaks. Complete combustion, so flue gas analysis. And in relation to carbon monoxide testing, there are a number of tests that we need to do in sequence to ensure that your tenants are safe and most of all, you're protecting your investment. We check for electrical isolation switches, correct appliance location, manual gas isolation valves, flue terminations, correct test pressure at your appliances, burner operation, and most of all, that there's a safety shutout device operational. Our smoke alarm safety compliance inspections are tested in accordance to AS 3786, and we test if the alarm's in date. We actually do a physical smoke test to make sure that your alarm is operational in the event of smoke or fire. We replace the battery, obviously, so to be captured in the next 12-month round of safety inspection testing. We also conduct decibel tests because, as per requirements, testing needs to be above 85 decibels. So that's done with a fully calibrated meter. And we have to make sure the smoke alarms, are there enough and are they in the correct location? And also, are the smoke alarms compliant?
Cool, thanks for that, Jimmy. I really appreciate you taking our clients through the process and what has to take place. Tell me, if there's, whilst you're there, you pick up a small fault, is it an instant decommission or switch off, or can you fix minor faults while you're there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Michael. In the name of the game is to get the properties compliant. So there are going to be minor faults and faulty parts that need to be fixed there and then on the spot. And in order to alleviate a separate call-out fee, a quote, all that sort of jazz, we've got a floating amount of $150 instant fix that landlords or rental providers can opt in and opt out of.
Yep.
And so 90% of the time, 99% of the time, we can fix it, and it's under that threshold. It's going to be a real value add fit for your rental providers.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, you'd be crazy not to do it with, as you say, the call-out fee would be $150 alone for most.
That's it, plus parts, plus editing. So if you can get your head around that, we're there anyway. We can fix it. Your property's compliant. We come back and service it in another 2 years. It's a real win. And
for peace of mind of our rental providers out there, you will take photos and show us what actually needs to happen and why it needed to happen. So they know you're not just doing it to make a bigger invoice.
100%. So we take a before and after shot of the decommissioned, say, circuit breaker or faulty gas valve and then we put the new one in, take a photo. So it's all captured in our field management software.
Awesome.
And uploaded into your rental provider's report. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate.
There are also changes around minimum standards and how you and us as your agent have to keep a property to a minimum standard of today's repair. Things like door locks and window latches to make sure that the windows can be locked from the inside are all forming part of the new legislation going forward. There are a number of things like energy efficiency ratings come into play. If you've got really old appliances like an old air conditioner that's no longer compliant, that would need to be brought up to today's standards. So there are quite a few changes in our older homes that we may need to look at going forward when we renew the tenancy. If all this seems a little too hard and maybe you're thinking, is it time to sell? Is it time to get out of the rental market? Then obviously we'd love to be your agent. If it comes time to look at selling, feel free to give us a call and we'll arrange a obligation-free appraisal for you as well. The prescribed dollar amount for urgent repairs has been $1,800 for quite some time now, and with the new legislation coming in on the 29th of March, that dollar amount is being moved to $2,500. The real kicker here is if a renter cannot get hold of us to fix what's deemed as an emergency repair, they can go straight to their own trade and get the job done, and we have to reimburse their money within 7 days. If things like a hot water service or electrical fault occur. Lucky for you guys, my phone is always on, so it would be very rare for a tenant not to be able to get hold of us day or night. There are now some minor repairs that a renter can do without written consent from you, or us for that matter, things like putting shelves up on walls, painting if they choose to, and minor repairs to make it feel more like home for them. Ultimately, we want the renter to feel at home, we want them to stay there and pay their rent and treat the home as if it's their own. So I don't see this as being a major issue. If they do cause any damage to the property or make it less valuable than what it was when they moved in, then they need to bring it back to its repair. But things like shelves on the walls, pictures on walls, that's all perfectly acceptable under the new legislation. Consumer Affairs have put out a number of fact sheets on this of what can and can't be done. And we will put a link to that website on the bottom of this video. And I'll also add a news column in under our website. So feel free to go to flynnandco.com.au, click on the news tab, and I'll have something there that you can click on and just go through some of the fact sheets if you want to. But of course, at any point in time, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at any time. I understand there's quite a lot to take in here, and we will try and wrap this up as quick as we can. Please know that nothing immediate needs to take place on the 29th of March. All this legislation is coming in for new leases and new tenancies rolling forward. So we will be able to progressively introduce all of this stuff as your lease becomes up for renewal or a new tenant is moving in. I will continue to try and feed more information by email, text or video, further videos like this if we have the need to, but I think we've covered off most of the important stuff in today's video. Whilst we're talking about change, and I understand it's been quite a long video, I'd like to let you all know that we do have Diana joining our team as of the 29th of March. Whilst Nina and Amy have been great, I do understand it's been difficult to get hold of them at some time, and we'll have Diana full-time in the office for you to ring and actually have a face-to-face or a phone call conversation with at any point in time. And I'm sure you'll love her as much as we do. I can't wait to have her on board, working with the other two girls as well. All right, that's a wrap from us today. Thanks very much for listening all the way through. As I said, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at any time, 5986 3000. Bye for now.